All right, what's going on, guys? We're going to be doing another recap today. Today I took two trades. Both were winning trades. So we're going to go ahead and cover my analysis on the market coming into today and my thought process behind the trades I took. I do have a live recording from the first trade execution I took, but for the second one, I don't have one just because I wasn't anticipating to take another trade. Except structure looked really good, and we'll kind of get into, the reasoning for that. But first things first, let's just go ahead and get into it and cover the higher time frame as usual. So on the 4 hour time frame, you guys will probably notice today, obviously, that we had, this huge 4 hour fair value gap here, right? Bearish 4 hour fair value gap. And, we can also combine that with this NWOG. But, this is a very huge gap. So, we're kind of interested just in this area, mainly as an area to reject from. We could see here overnight, we did have a strong move to the downside here. You could see that, we kind of rebalanced into this wick, started to make a move back up into this 4 hour gap and created our London high. So that's kind of the first thing that I'm seeing on the 4 hour. Next thing I'm seeing are draws and liquidity. We have this previous week high, previous day high. I'm anticipating that this is likely to be a protected high because we obviously have this 4 hour gap here holding us lower. We have the 4 hour inversion that, is a structure shift in price. And then, we have the new week opening gap here as well. So we have, a lot of confluences protecting this area here. And then the other thing as a bonus is that, last week, Friday, we ended up sweeping out this high on the 4 hour, this range high, and seeing some rejection from it coming into, market last night. Going down to the 1 hour time frame, we could see here around 6 a.m. we did form this very, very, very slight 1 hour fair value gap. And you can see we rebalanced into that, ended up getting some kind of reaction here around 8 a.m. Nothing really crazy that I see on the hourly. We did reject this, higher gap in the leg. So our final gap in the leg, we could see that we are holding rejection and alignment to that 4 hour. And then we'll kind of cover here the market open, which is the start here. So let's go down to the 15-minute time frame. So we'll get into the first trade that I took. So the first trade I took today was kind of based off 15-minute structure and, seeing this London high as a pretty clear draw at the time of me seeing the chart. So pre-market, I'm seeing, we have this candle here that's printing and we have this bearish 15-minute gap. Now, this is our final gap in the leg, at least in this, candle structure here. And, I would anticipate if we want lower, we could potentially manipulate this London high and then seek a move lower into the range lows and obviously, furthermore. So that's kind of what I saw on the 15. So in terms of, how I played an entry here, I scaled down to the 1 minute time frame and I kind of played a very discretionary entry. So I didn't wait for the 15 minute to close because obviously you could see 9:30. Your 15-minute close is off of this candle here. So I didn't really want to wait for that late of an entry to the clear draw. So I kind of went on the 1 minute. We could see clear continuation structure here to the upside. So I saw these candles moving up here. We can see obviously we are in bullish structure in this structure here, like in this candle structure here. And then obviously right here, we get a very clear, continuation move into these London highs, making it a clear draw. You then get a very nice break even in these internal highs here. And you can see there's a pretty, low resistance highs into London. Obviously, once we get to London, there's really no draws on liquidity besides the NWOG, which could have also been another draw if you wanted to target a bit higher. But in this case, I just wanted to take a very clear trade. So we could see here, this is my entry here. We get a slight retrace down into a 1 minute gap. This could offer another entry as well. And I know some people did take this. And then you could see here off the 9:30 open, we get a slight wick down and then we end up making a run up into the London high. So that was the first trade I took for about 1.2 R. Very clean continuation, very simple. And then going into the next trade I took, this was a, another simple 1 R trade, just a simple continuation scalp. Now, basically what I can see here, again, this is why I was saying I didn't plan to take another trade. But as you can see, we have an SMT now up here with ES, an internal SMT. Now, we did have a high up here that I would have liked to see us take on ES. So we had the previous day high, previous week high that ES ended up edging. I would have liked us to see that external SMT in order to, go lower. Obviously, lower still played out, but that was kind of weird out of ES that we failed to take that when, it was all the way up here for NQ. That would have been a very, very nice external SMT. either way, it's completely fine. We can see that ES filled in its NWOG entirely, whereas NQ came in and filled in the bottom half or the bottom portion of the NWOG, and then we make that internal SMT. So from there, I want to see, okay, are we going to end up, distributing lower now? We obviously took out London highs. Now we put in SMT at the top, and, we're coming out of the NWOG at this point, which is true day open and your weekly open as well. So here I'm seeing strong displacement, and ideally I would have wanted to get in somewhere around, this candle moving down, but I did want to see if we were going to have like a retrace or some sort on this candle. So I was willing to take a lower entry. I ended up taking an entry here off the second candle. Once it came up here, gave a slight retrace and started, moving back down. I kind of saw more weakness in price at that point. And, this candle here on the 1 minute, it's a 70-point candle, right? So at this point, a shallow retrace to then go lower into this clear range low would make sense, right? So I ended up entering midway through this candle, and I put my stop pretty much kind of aligned with these internal highs here. There's really no reasoning for that. But in a trade like this, you're not expecting us to retrace this candle now that we're seeing, super, weakness in price. So I just kind of ran a more discretionary stop in a sense. And then, obviously targeted just the range lows. So simple 1-to-1. In terms of break even, I kind of just went break even once we started to flush harder towards the draw. And then I extended my stop, or not my stop, but my TP by just a tiny bit, just to get a 1-to-1, because you guys can see here that this would have been a, negative RR trade. So we extended our TP just a bit here to get a 1-to-1. And that was the second trade that we had taken on the day. I did post this in my Discord, but here are the P&Os for those trades here across these selects. Now, these are evals. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that these are funded. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I have had a red month in January, and this month more than likely might be red, but it's not over yet, so we'll see how it goes. But these are evals, looking to get those passed this week, ideally. More than likely, this will also be a red month, but I'm kind of just, restructuring myself, kind of regaining my edge a bit after, getting a bit complacent. But today, yeah, pretty good reads on the market. This long here was honestly pretty free, very clean long. And then this short was very clean. Ideally, you want to take your profits at this, range low. And if you're going to extend your profits, final profit should be inside this bullish 1 hour. So you can see here, at the time before the rest of the price played out, obviously we had a bullish 1 hour, which was your last gap in the leg. So with that trade there, those were your only two kind of targets to take. For me, I like taking the most clear target, which is this internal low, that range low. And yeah, the short ended up playing out pretty nicely. The other thing to mention as well is that, if we were going to get a retrace, right, I assume this candle was going to create the gap. If we will get a retrace, I wouldn't expect us to give a heavy retrace of this gap, seeing the weakness in price. I would expect us to give a shallow retrace and maybe not even fill the gap at all. And ultimately, you can see, we created this huge gap, failed to fill it. And then, we came down, created this smaller gap right here, right, gave a slight retrace on that, on this bearish candle here, and then ended up flushing through the draws, right? So pretty clean. Structure was very clean here, and then obviously through the lows here. Now, some people may have been wondering why we ended up chopping, why, price action was not playing out. I saw a lot of people were getting chopped out of the market around this range. The reason, and the only reason for that, is you can see when we zoom out, right, we take out the range high, right, and then we take out, what are the range lows, right, which are, these lows here are low resistance, and then we're now, inside of that 1 hour gap. So when it comes to these higher time frame gaps, my rule of thumb usually is, if we're going to want to trade through it, we need to wait for us to flush through, and price needs to show that we clearly want to displace through. So, I have these relative equal lows marked out, previous week equilibrium. You obviously just couldn't target it because it was so close, to this choppy range. There really was no setup, in my opinion, that would have been valid, as we hadn't yet broken structure or broken the range. Now, once we start getting displacement like this, is where you can say, okay, now we can start framing, potential lows again to be ran. But yeah, at this point here, we're obviously ranging at the top, right? Or we took the range at the top, and then we took, the immediate range at the bottom. And, we now have to break past this 1 hour gap to then get towards all this, low resistance at that point, if that makes sense. So, we can look at it on a 5-minute structure, right? Just looking, this is obviously a range high, your range low on 5-minute structure, right? Obviously these lows are really close here, so you can incorporate these. But at that point, these are your next lows to target, and at that point you want to wait for us to start displacing again towards these to even start framing. And unfortunately, we didn't get any kind of setups out of here to get those relative equal lows, so you could have waited and taken a trade down to these previous day lows here. And there was good continuation in here. For me, I would have probably played something like this and watched this 1 minute gap, right? I would have wanted to see a retrace. And then once I didn't see a retrace on that gap, what I would do is I would instead, instead of putting my stop here at that point, I would just put my stop protected by the gap in case we do end up wanting to retrace. But this candle right here kind of tells me, okay, we are weak in price. We're drawing towards our previous day low. This looks like a great setup here. And if we're gonna retrace and go lower, this 1 minute gap very well should hold us lower, seeing how weak price ends up getting once we break out of the range, right? And then on this you can get a really good RR. If you're looking for previous day low, you get above a 2R. This is a really good trade to take. And you can see once we build volume again, then we start moving. And again, this is in alignment, if you notice, with the 1050 macro. So we start moving again, we get super clean displacement all the way down to previous day low, stall out there, bounce off of that a bit, and then now you can see we're range bound. So that's just a little bit of sauce for future reference. But in cases like this, you can see, exactly what I did was trade to the range high, assumed that was manipulation, waited for confirmation, then traded back down to the range low, and then called it a day from there. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for today. That might have been more of like a little bit in-depth trade recap, but I'm going to start trying to drop some more sauce in these videos. And as mentioned, in the Discord channels that I am in, where people are active and I'm active as well, I mentioned I'm going to be trying to get out at least a YouTube video per day, and then some other content on other socials as well. Not really trying to promote or like prioritize social media, but just definitely worth using my free time to put out sauce where I can. So hopefully you guys, have some value from this video as every other video. And again, I will see you guys in the next video. If you guys did appreciate this, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and drop a comment. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.